So, hi everyone, and welcome to today's author talk hosted by A Cup of Tea with That Book Please, a blog website full of book reviews and recommendations, related news reports, original writing, and of course, tea. My name is Sabrisha Jones. I'm creator of The Cup of Tea with That Book Please, and today I will be in conversation with our special guest, children's author Clare Harlow, to talk about her book series, Tidemagic. So thank you, Clare, for joining us this afternoon.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
And we want to give a big thank you to all the attendees and everyone who is watching. You could be doing a number of other things right now, but you're with us today for this virtual author event. And after our discussion, there will be some time for Q&A. I will be monitoring the chat, so if you have a question that comes up during the conversation, please post it into the Q&A box or the chat box, which I will tell you about on the next slide. And I will, of course, do our very best to get to all of your questions. Any links and resources that I will share or talk about during this talk will be shared with all the attendees and on my blog. And we do ask to be respectful to all attendees and panelists. There we go. So just to briefly go over a couple of housekeeping rules and also the features with Zoom if you're unfamiliar with it. Please keep yourself muted if you are not speaking. This is a way to prevent any kind of ambient noise, and you can do that by hovering your mouse and turning the microphone off or on. And you can also have your camera on if you choose so, and that was the little camera icon, and you can turn your camera off or on. And also feel free to use the chat box for any questions, comments. If you want to give Claire a shout out, feel free to do that as well in the chat box function. And also you are able to enable the closed captions if you need live captions throughout the entirety of today's discussion. So before we get in talking about with our conversation with Claire, we just want to give a little shout out to if you are a fan of books and pop culture and the power of friendship, make sure to check out the Fake Book Club podcast. You can listen on whenever you get your podcasts. Our first season is already out, and we are currently in our second season, and we talk about a free range of things like reading trackers, horror or horrible books, nostalgia, and K-pop. Well, that is one of our co-hosts' personal favorites is K-pop. So it's plenty of time to still catch up with season 2 and also to go with season 1. So make sure to visit our website, fakebookclubpodcast.wordpress.com, or subscribe to this YouTube channel where you can also get the current and past episodes of the Fake Book Club. Okay, and that's great. So now we are going to introduce our special guest today, Clare Harlow. So once upon a time, Clare was an actor. A few years ago, she turned her love of storytelling from stage to page and became a writer too. Her first book, Tidemagic, The Many Faces of Ista Flit, has been shortlisted for the Waterstones Children's Book Prize, the Week Junior, not Week, W-E-A-K, W-E-E-K. Want to make sure. The Week Junior Breakthrough Book Award and the James Reckitt Children's Book Award, and longlisted for the Spark School Book Award. The sequel, Tidemagic, Ista Flit, and the Impossible Key was recently published earlier this year, 2025. She recently graduated with distinction from the MA in Writing for Young People at Bath Spa University. She lives in Southeast London, where she spends a lot of time walking by the river. So thank you so much, Clare, again, for joining us this afternoon.
Oh, it's ever so nice to be here, Teresa. Thanks for having me.
And congratulations on so many awards for Tidemagic. This very delightful children fantasy series. And also, congratulations on the recent release of Ista, Flit, and the Impossible Key.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been really exciting. All the like award stuff has been so cool. I think like middle grade, it's quite hard to get your middle grade out there at the moment, and those things have been a real boost to me. I should say I've just been shortlisted for these. I haven't won any of them yet. Some at the week junior one is still going, so fingers crossed for that. But yeah, like middle grade in the UK certainly is having a bit of a crisis in terms of sales. So I'm just so grateful for being on these awards shortlist. It has definitely like lengthened the like life and exposure that my book is getting in shops.
Yeah, yeah, still, even though you were shortlisted, still congratulations. Even whether
Thank
you
you.
whether you win or not, it's always great to like be nominated for these
Oh, it
things.
is amazing. It's absolutely, it's just so wonderful. Yeah, it's really brilliant. And yeah, yeah, no, it's been fantastic. And one of them was particularly good. The James Rackett Whole Children's Book Award. They run a whole festival around their like awards days. So kids from different years at local schools go to different days, and they have like a big for the one I went to, it was the Key Stage 3. So that's like the beginning of secondary school in the UK. So like 12, 13, 14 year olds and 11, 12, 13 year olds. And it's all in a big like a kind of big top, like a old like a circus tent kind of idea, and a
Yeah.
huge like festival day, and all the different writers do presentations, and there are like loads of games for the kids to do, like art games and writing games and things where they all contribute. And it was hosted by this amazing, oh, I wish I could remember his name, but an amazing like local poet who kind of emceed the whole day. Yeah, it was really good.
So you already like touched base on like a lot of things that we're definitely going to talk about in this conversation. But I do want to give readers like a chance of like a brief synopsis of what Tidemagic is about. So could you, like, for readers who have not had a chance to read either books in the series, could you give us like a brief description of what the book is about?
Yeah, sure. So I had the like initial idea for the Tidemagic series back in the days when it of like Twitter pitch competitions and that kind of thing. And I remember like in the end, because of the way things went, I didn't need to sort of pitch it on Twitter anywhere. But my pitch for that was going to be in a world where magic ebbs and flows with the tide, a shape-shifting thief, a rookie reporter, and a wannabe acrobat have to solve the mystery of who's controlling the monsters that are terrorizing the city. And that was my kind of initial pitch for it. And that is basically still um like the pitch for the book in some ways. So it's set in a magical city where magic rises and falls with the tides. Every time the river rises, the magic rises as well, and people get temporary superpowers that they call tide blessings. And for most people, that is something kind of like quite small, like one character can mimic animal noises when the magic is high, or maybe you can like levitate off the ground but only a couple of inches. But my main character, Ista, has the ability to transform herself to look like anybody she's ever laid eyes on when the magic is high. And that's a really useful power for her because this is also a mystery story. When the magic rises, the monsters come out. The monsters are called Grilks, and no one knows where they come from or where they're going to, but they are making people vanish. And one of the people who has vanished, been taken by the Grilks, is Ista's own father. So she has to solve the mystery of kind of where he might be and what's going on with him. So it's kind of magical, mystery, monstrous. Yeah.
This book has everything that I wanted in a children's story when I was a child. I always wanted like magic, children doing magic, and also children, taking charge when the adults were freaking out or not willing to do anything, and also just solving the mystery on our own. And there was just, and while I was reading this series, it's like there's just so much world building in here. And I was asked, like, where did you get the inspiration to create Tidemagic? It's like it had the inspiration for this had to come from somewhere.
Yeah, so I moved to where I live now, still in Southeast London, about 10 years ago now. And not long after I had moved to Southeast London, I had this idea for a magic system where magic rose and fell with the tide. And that literally came from um, I live in quite a touristy part of Southeast London. If anyone comes to Southeast London, I live kind of like Greenwich is the kind of area, like there's a kind of, it's like Royal Maritime Greenwich, the Royal Borough of Greenwich, and there's lots of tourist attractions by the kind of main stretch of the river there, and it's really beautiful and wonderful. But I particularly like it in the winter when it's a bit gloomy and the tourists go away. And I was walking along one of the really kind of ancient paths by the river one winter's afternoon, like I think it was actually December, so you know when it gets dark at like 4 in the afternoon around here. And so it was freezing cold and it was dark, like getting dark, very nearly dark, not tourist time at all. I was kind of alone on the riverbank and it was really misty as well. And on those old footpaths, like the river rises right up and you get these waves that kind of crash over the footpath in front of you. And you have to kind of hop back to stop yourself getting totally soaked. And I just had this moment where as I hopped back, kind of clutching my shopping that I was carrying back from town, I was like all alone and it was misty and it was just on that cusp of getting absolutely dark. And sometimes that can be a scary thing, like feeling like you're alone in the dark, but it didn't feel like that. It just felt in that moment like brilliant and magical. And I thought, what if there's something out there in the shadows? And what if the magic really did come at times like this? Yes, the kind of the world came from there. And then I just couldn't write the book. I was writing other things at the time. I was writing a lot of YA. I tried to write a YA version of it, tried to write an adult fantasy version of things set in that world. And it just wasn't working for whatever reason. And then in 2020, so like, you know, it was a long years later, having kind of put this aside and worked hard on some other things, I just, as I think quite a lot of us might have been, was in like quite a sort of bad, sad place, and really was seeking a bit of slightly more escapist comfort maybe than the YA I'd been writing previously. And I reread a couple of kind of, you know, childhood favorite, like middle grade stories, and then was like, well, I wonder what's out there now, because I'd always read a lot of YA as well as adult fiction, but I was like, what's the middle grade kind of world doing at the moment? And read it, and I forget what I read, but I read a couple of things that were like, you know, recent, and I just thought, oh, this is all excellent. And I realized there was a place in the kind of modern middle grade world for exactly the kind of story I wanted to tell. And there had been a character in the kind of adult version of the book I tried to write she was a young assassin in that, like a kind of child assassin. And I thought, well, I'm probably not going to make her an assassin, middle grade version of the story. But suddenly I had this idea that, you know, she would be this this, you know, this child thief, but who was doing it for kind of sort of had, you know, reasons and purpose. And as soon as I had that, the whole thing clicked into place, because putting that same character into a world where I was writing for middle grade readers, I wanted to give her much more security and safety and be experiencing that kind of dangerous magical world in a very different way. And it just, yeah, it all just went from there, as clearly as if I saw her kind of coming, you know, walking down the riverbank in the mist towards me. It was really, really strange. Um, yeah, so it all just came out of that. And then because you could only go out locally for such a long time in 2020, you couldn't really talk to anyone else either. I live with someone, so we could go out together, but you know, you couldn't be sort of near anyone who wasn't from your household. So I was just walking around my local area. So the whole world unraveled from anywhere that I could go near my house in Greenwich, basically. It's like I took the map of Greenwich and all the like local landmarks, and people who have like been to the area and have read especially the first book kind of go, oh, that's that matches up with that. And I kind of shuffled them all around a bit and put magic and monsters into it all.
Now that you said it was like your inspiration came a little bit of your inspiration came from Greenwich. Now I'm like looking, like recalling back. I'm like that. Now I have to like look back to see the landmarks, because I've been to Greenwich
Oh
in London,
yeah.
and I'm like, okay, wait. Now I'm thinking about, I was like, wait a minute, yeah, that does look familiar. That does look familiar. So that's really cool that you took Greenwich and then made it into Shoreditch, and like took your
Yeah.
inspiration from that. And that's like very interesting. And also it's interesting how this initially you tried to write it as an adult book, and then also then tried to do it as a young adult book, and it seems like it didn't work. Why do you feel that either writing in both of those genres it didn't work. And writing in like like a middle grade, that worked better for you.
I think it was partly that I'm sorry, my cats are fighting in the background. I really hope you can't hear too much of that. That's hilarious. I think partly it is that it's a magical world with kind of monsters and political themes. And I think it just kept going to a place where I couldn't always find the fun in it and the joy in it. Like it kept becoming quite bleak quite quickly. And yeah, so I think for some reason, like that might be a great book to write at another time. But at that time, that wasn't what I wanted to do with that magic in that world. I wanted to write something a bit more joyful, and I wanted to write something where um yeah, that magic coming into play, if that did kind of happen in the world, if suddenly we could all do that kind of, today or tomorrow or whatever, where that would be a kind of empowering and joyful experience. Not that people wouldn't use it for a bit of evil sometimes, because, that's the nature of storytelling. We need a kind of, a whole spectrum. But yeah, I think the brutal truth is it was just becoming too bleak every time I yeah, brought it up in age range. But that also made me think very carefully about the magical system and the world building when I was writing it as middle grade. And I have this idea in it that it's the idea there's always been magic in the world, like myths and legends. And, if you go back thousands of years, like the idea of magic would have been alive. And so my idea is that it's kind of this one big cycle of the tide. It used to be here and then it's kind of ebbed away and now it's coming back in. And what I put along with that to make sure the young characters were kind of the most empowered characters in the story was the idea that generationally, as the magic rises, people are being born with more magical powers. So the children have the really exciting magical powers in the story, and the people who are kind of, my age don't get such good things to play around with. So it would really put the young characters front and center, rather than having that feeling of got some more cat action going on in the background. Rather than having that feeling of why is I don't know, why is the sort of superhero grown-up character not stepping in and saving the day? I wanted it to be that the children genuinely had the kind of ability to do that, and also just were the most exciting characters in that world.
I always find it refreshing to see like children stepping up, and I don't want to say like taking the slack of like adults my age or teenagers. That like they're stepping up, they're forefront, because I feel like children, and this is also like partly why middle grade sometimes gets like pushed aside, is because it's not like taken seriously, or people just like don't find joy, or they feel like it has to have a certain meaning to it. It's almost like how you said like the reason like what young adult and the adult didn't work is because it became bleak and and very like, I don't want to say like political, or just like you, at the time we needed happiness and joy, and then but also that could be anytime, especially now. And then so I was like reading this now, I was like, you know what, this is enjoyable. I'm not reading a depressing mystery about people who are just all so horrible people, like both adult and young adult. I am reading just children, a little girl trying to find her father, but also in the world of monsters and magic. And then sometimes we just need that joy, and it is frustrating, and I feel like the frustration a little bit on your end for like middle grade authors all over the world who are trying to like, get to that level. They're like, okay, hey, our books can have some meaning, doesn't have to like have a hidden meaning. We just want to like write great stories that pushes like the imaginations to people. And I think that's what your the Tidemagic does. It's like it inspires, but also just like tells a fun story and a fun adventure story that all ages can enjoy.
I really hope so. I think as well, like it's interesting that thing about putting children front and center, because there is also like there can be a danger sometimes in our attitudes to like real world problems of, oh, like the young people will save it, you know, and I'm aware of myself becoming increasingly middle-aged, and there's this tendency to be like, well, we've missed our shot, so let's hope the next generation do better. And I didn't want it to be like that at all, so I really wanted to make sure the kids got to have the adventure, but try to include like a sense of community for them all, that there are adults who are engaged with all of the lives of all the children in the book, on different levels, and that a lot of the kind of things to do with the politics of the book, which I hope that the story manages to wear quite lightly, but also are very much there and should be like hopefully making people think a bit in the background, that the idea at the end of the book is, well, we have to resolve some of these things together, you know, and if there are people in our community who've done wrong, we have to try to figure out what to do with them together, you know, as well. Like it's all children who are very engaged in the process, but the adults aren't totally stepping away and going, no, no, you fix it for us.
Like, that's your
Yeah,
job now. Like,
yeah.
no. It's all of our jobs.
Yeah, but it's really like, it is so, it like the things that middle grade books can do as well. I really do believe sometimes it's that thing of there's the old quote about like Ginger Rogers, isn't there, who was Fred Astaire's dance partner, you know, everything he did she did backwards and in heels. And I sometimes think that I wish that a few of the adults that I occasionally overhear in bookshops just trying to get their kids the books that they loved when they were, you know, the same age as those children, or just going for, we have a big sort of issue in the UK with people only, parents who aren't widely read in middle grade, just going in bookshops and in libraries for books by whatever male comedian they recognize off the telly. And so a couple of those I would say are really good, and a lot of them are quite good, and some of them are not good at all and have quite problematic tropes in them. And I really wish that people would talk to the librarians and booksellers a bit more and get a few more recommendations, because there is some extraordinary stuff happening in middle grade in just so few pages. You know, it can do everything for you that like a massive long like series of adult fantasy books can do. And I really think that a good middle grade fantasy adventure mystery is good for the age group it's written for, but it's good for the grown-ups in that kid's life, or just the grown-ups who maybe like me want to pick up one, you know, on a pretty regular basis and lose themselves in that world anyway. If you think you've not got enough time to read fantasy, you've got enough time to read middle grade fantasy.
Yeah, no, because I think, and as a librarian, I see that too. Not more on like the celebrity um, books written by celebrities, but more on, these are the series that are popular. They're continuously popular, and these are the ones that we're going to gravitate towards. And I will I will show you where those books are, and tell you where they are, but trying to get readers, especially children's and their parents, to like, okay, yes, we have Diary of a Wimpy Kid, but maybe why don't you try these books instead, because they're all checked out. Or, you know, Wings of Fire, the comic book, or Harry Potter. And I'm like, okay, yes, great great fantasy series, but here are others that have the same like world building and fantasy elements. Try these, give these a try. And it is hard. It is hard
Yes,
to get like children and adult readers to try something different and give a chance on something new, instead of the ones that are like, you know, that keep like are being put in their faces. And you are right, is that's where librarians and booksellers, because I feel, do booksellers try to like promote books that are not like not, they're not always make the best-selling list, but it is difficult for them as well, because they are, the bookstores are there to make money.
yeah, and also often they have to be on the till, don't they? So they can't always
Yeah.
be at the tables like advising. I think occasionally a bookseller is like, please ask me and I'll run away from the till and like take you around the shop, and we can you know, we can have a really good natter about books. But yeah, it's difficult.
Yeah, so I think now like more than ever is like, and I think that's like the benefits of like having these kind of events, or you know, like book bloggers and bookstagram, is like trying to highlight those books that are under the radar, to promote them a little bit more, to get that more of attention, so people, not to diminish like the best-selling books, but to give those books that like a more of an even like playing field. It's like, okay, yes, you have this, but you also have this as well. This is just as equally as good. And it's giving you more options, not saying like these are the only options that you have. And
Yeah.
then giving you a chance to explore more.
Exactly, especially because we're so blessed, or perhaps even over blessed, with like the range and the number of books that are published every year. You know, that's a big part of it as well. I think there are just so many books being published, you can't get to all of them. But you know, the sort of the great upside of that is that there is a book for everyone. You know, there will be a book where if you want a short book, there'll be a short book. If you want a long book, there'll be a long book. If you want a funny book, there's a funny book. And there should be a book where people can see, whoever they are, at least some aspect of their own identity and their own life represented in the book as well. You know, the range we have out there now, in some ways, like middle grade has never looked kind of better and brighter. It's just getting it to all the readers. And but yeah, I'm certainly very grateful for all the librarian, teacher, blogger, reviewer, booksellers who are on social media kind of doing things, because there's a lot of accounts now who really focus on, if you like this, maybe you'd also like these, if you're thinking about this, or here's a new book that I loved and it reminded me of these 5 others that you've probably heard already. And yeah, that's invaluable, really, just that little like nod of recommendation towards something.
And and also piggybacking what you say, like children seeing themselves in books, and that's like very highlighted with the characters that you have in books. And I want to talk about the characters in Tidemagic, because you have a very range of different characters, but you have like the 3 main characters. You have Ista, and then you have Nat and Ruby. And I wanted to ask, like, where the inspiration came from in creating these 3 characters. Like, did you like it just came upon you, like, or did you take some of their personalities from people did you know? Like, how did the creation of them come about?
It's a really good question. I always find this is one of the few things with writing, the characterization, that does just tend to come to me, and I can't always, like, I didn't sit down one day and go, I'm going to write a character. Who will it be? What will it be? I guess I had Ista first, and when she clicked into place, um, Nat and Ruby kind of clicked in, like, I don't know, not around it, just felt like they would be part of that world as well. It's really weird. I think I've worked with a lot of kids, so while none of the characters are based on any one particular, you know, 11-year-old who I've worked with. I worked as an English tutor for years and years and years, alongside the kind of other work I was doing. So I spent a lot of time, I guess, like hanging out with young people. And I'm sure there will be little, you know, little bits of all of those kids who've come into the characters in the story. Like, I wanted it to feel, although we never call it London in the story, I I wanted to kind of feel that kids who grew up in London would see themselves in the story, in one of the characters or all the characters, and would be able to imagine themselves running around, running around the city with Istinat and Ruby. And it's been really interesting going, like, you do a lot of school visits, obviously, being a middle grade writer, and meeting kids and hearing about who their favorite is, or, you know, what they'd like more of. Yeah. Uh, and it's actually really interesting because there seems to be quite an even split of who is who, you know, the number of people whose favorite character is Ista or is Nat or is Ruby. Although the Ruby fans get grumpy because they say she doesn't come into the book quite early enough. And I totally agree with them. And we worked really hard, but we had to get the book down under a certain length. So I was always like, bring Ruby Mallard in sooner, but we couldn't really. She makes a brief appearance early on and then has to disappear for a while. And that was just the way that worked out. Um, yeah. Um, yeah, I guess the one thing I would say is that I wrote it in 2020, and Ista and Ruby are both the kind of people that I think I wished I could be in 2020. Kind of, they, I mean, Ista does the right thing and follows her heart, you know, quite often to a fault, you know, whereas Ruby is perhaps a bit more clever about things and sort of, you know, thinks it through. But they both make the kind of the brave decisions, and do sometimes sort of fling themselves into danger. And Nat probably is a bit more like me and it's the one who's going, Before we jump into this chasm, or before we run towards these monsters, or before we do whatever we're going to do next, could we just stop and think for a second and
That's
maybe
me.
tell a grown up?
Yeah, I would be Nat all day. I'm like,
Yeah.
no, 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 no. We are not doing this. Let's tell a grown up and let's see what they do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's important to have that kind of voice of reason. And also to show that, although Nat is the timid one of the three, he still does all the things and comes along as well. And I've always been very like, I guess like lucky with my groups of friends growing up that I have always been, if you were measuring our physical bravery, I would always have been the least physically brave about things like that. I was the kid who, for a long time, I lived in like a tiny village in the countryside, like with less than 100 people. And I would be the kid who stood at the bottom of the tree reading a book while my friends were up climbing the tree. Yeah, so Nat is quite like me from that point of view. And that you need that balance, and he gets to come on the adventure too. And just because you're not the quickest or the strongest or anything, that doesn't mean that you're not part of it.
And that reminds me, it's like one of those quiet heroes. Like you have those quiet characters that you don't think that they're powerful, but they're introverted and they are more like in thinking, they're cautious and they think more internally and they have more power. And maybe because I felt a little more connected with Nat, so that's what I want to say. Like he had more power than anyone, and he has no powers in the book. But I'm like, dude, that is your power. You
Yeah.
think things through. It's like don't count that out. So I think like even though he didn't have magic physically, he did because he just like his excuse me, his cautiousness was his power. And also giving that balance, like you said, for
Yeah.
Ista and Ruby, giving them a chance to like really think things through, but still going at it. But he was just like, he's that voice of reason. So he was definitely should not be counted out.
No, not at all. And also, like I said before, it is a mystery novel as well. And Ista is our kind of protagonist, but Nat is the one with a lot of the detective skills. He's learned all that from his journalist mum. Like he knows how to ask good questions. He knows how to listen for the answers. He knows how to like listen out for what's not being said when people answer your questions as well, and how to kind of put it all together. Yeah, so I think he is definitely, to me, they're like, once they're working together, they're a kind of triangle. No one is we haven't got kind of a leader and two followers, or a kind of anyone who is more special than anyone else. They are a little unit. I've got a really cool thing that it's only in, we did like a special edition for UK independent bookshops, and I wrote some extra content for it because the book was so beautiful already. I'm not sure what you've got in the US version, but the UK one has things like, it has like an extra inside, like double cover and all this like amazing stuff. And so they didn't want to add any art to it because it had so much of that kind of stuff already. But so I wrote like a little sort of interview with Ista, Nat and Ruby at the end, where Nat's trying to do like a homework project for the school paper, interviewing the others. And I had an absolute ball writing that, just having them all like sounding off at each other.
Now I just want to buy the UK version because no, like the US version, not counting out the US version, it does. The first book has illustrations, um, but that's it. There's no added stuff or anything. Yeah, there's like a couple of illustrations of like
Yeah, you have a few of the interiors, I think, don't you? Yeah.
yeah, like this one, like Ista, like entering the
Oh, I
alley, like
love
about the
that.
secret. Yeah, the
Yeah, it's for
store.
anyone who's seeing those on screen, it's Carl James Mountford does the cover illustration for both books, and he does the interiors for the first book, and then for the second book, Carl does the cover, and then an artist called Christina Kister does the interiors. I must shout them out at any possible opportunity because their work is just phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. But it's an interesting, I guess, like publishing story. So when I originally signed my book deal, the books were going to come out in hardback in the UK as well. And then just because of the state of the middle grade market, really, we thought we would put extra in. There was a kind of a big consultation about what to do with books, and they decided to put extra art into the UK paperback, but to bring it straight out into paperback. Which was like a really weird thing to hear at the time. And then by the time the book came out, I was really in favor of it. So that's why we have the kind of extra bells and whistles and things. So it's worked out really well.
Yeah, no, because I have to definitely get the UK version because I want to see that beautiful. One, I want to see the artwork, and two, I want to read that interview. That
Oh
sounds
yeah, so if you
a
want to read
lot of
the
fun.
interview, you need to get the indie bookshop version, which
Okay.
I think there are still some copies available of in some indie stores. Yeah, not the main version hasn't got the interview in. But also I think it's gone to reprint in the UK, the first book now, which is really exciting.
Oh, that's
And
great.
so I think it's going to have slightly less. I think with like the double cover, it's only going to have one half of it rather, or no, this half of it rather than that. So see if you can get
Oh,
yourself a first edition indie bookshop one, and
okay.
yeah, that'll be the one to have all the bells and whistles.
Yeah, definitely. I have my work cut out for me. I have to do some research.
It's amazing though, isn't it, with covers? There's well, in fact, I think it's coming out in North America quite soon. There is a book that I loved that if people have liked Tidemagic, I think they would really love this as well. And it's called Secrets of the Snakestone. It's by Piyush Dasgupta. And it's a historical mystery with a hint of magic set in Paris, and it's absolutely incredible. But I have seen, because I know Piyush a little, the kind of the cover for that, and I hadn't really realized before, what is underneath the dust jacket. You know how it's got an incredible dust jacket, but then it's got the kind of, you take the dust jacket off and the kind of, there's a special name, isn't there, for the bit of the hardback cover that is the underneath bit, but like the kind
uh,
of embossed, imprinted bit. Oh my goodness, just, beautiful. What a thing to have. Yeah.
yeah, and sometimes it's like gilded or depending
Yeah.
on like the design, they might use like a gold kind of carving tool kind of thing to like carve
Yeah.
like gold kind of thing to make a design and stuff. They used to like do that. I did it my library degree in rare books and special collections. That's why I know a lot about
Oh,
this.
okay, so
Yeah,
you know
they
it
would
all.
yeah, they would do that like, for like a lot of 16th to 19th century books. They would these were like these special edition books and they only did for like a couple if you were rich you were able to bind your books in these special bindings and they would use like a carving tool and use like gold or silver and they would just like carve it and make these illustrious designs. They were so beautiful. You see it sometimes only for like really few special edition books, but yeah, sometimes when you take off the book jacket there are book editions where they will have these beautiful designs on them, or even like end paper, they'll cover the book and just to make it very unique and stuff. So yeah, I have to look into that too. So
Oh yeah, that's a yeah. It makes me think I must take the dust jackets off more of my hardcovers and see what I've
yeah,
got,
I
because I
do.
bet I've got a lot already at home where I'd be like, oh, this is amazing. um,
You do, yeah, because they a lot of publishers sometimes they'll just do cloth binding,
yeah,
but there are sometimes they will like put special kind of binding in it to make it, especially if it's like ties in with the book or just to give you a more of a feel of the book, and also it you want to protect the book jacket as well because so I will
yeah,
tend to take off the book jacket if I'm taking the book outside because I'm like, no, I don't want to tear the book jacket. I'm very
yeah.
particular about my about my
Mm.
books. So
Yes, I'm learning to be less precious about my books because the cats that we may have seen in the background earlier, um, one of them really, like, if he can get a hold of paper, he'll eat bits of it. And I bought a book recently that is it's like an adult, like I guess it's under the fantasy umbrella. Like it's kind of in like a gaming world. So it's one of those ones that I guess was written in like installments, like Fic or whatever online first.
yeah.
And it's a Dungeon Crawler Carl is the first one. This is, if any middle grade readers are reading this, this is very much not a middle grade book, but it's like it's all based on like it's a bit like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy if it was set in a world of computer games. So like the whole world is going to get squished at the start, and Carl and a cat called Princess Donut, who is his ex-girlfriend's cat, end up not getting squished and getting sent down, and they get kind of co-opted into playing, all the survivors on the planet get co-opted into playing this kind of dungeon crawling style game that is just like a video game. It's obviously all based on like gaming rules, which really appealed to me. And it's it's really, really funny and really violent as well. But the book has only just come out in hardback in the UK. There's a whole series of them because they were self-published first. A publisher has now realised that there's a huge fandom for these books, and so
Yeah.
I had never came to them through that kind of fandom. I've only seen them as like walking past bookshops. So I bought this book, and it was the most expensive hardback I've bought in a long time. And I thought about it long and hard, and bought it and loved it, and was like, this is going on my to keep shelf. And the afternoon it was kind of en route to there. My cat has, ripped a bit of the jacket. I'm just furious with him, just really furious.
Cats and books, they think it's like their toy. And I'm like, I've had like library books, even with the Mylar and the jacket, the protective stuff, and my cat will bite it and there's teeth marks. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. And I just like discreetly return the book and just not say anything. It's like, I'm sorry.
Yes. I saw a thing at I'm lucky we've got a lot of local libraries like in my kind of borough of London, you can go to all the different ones. And I saw a thing at one of them recently saying we're having like a library book amnesty. If you've got anything you haven't returned, please don't worry about the condition. We just want to track everything. So even if, the dog has literally eaten half of it or you spilt tea all over it, just bring the book back so we know what's happened to it. There will be no fines, no charges for this 1 month. Anyone, just please bring our books back.
Yep. That's the same thing we say because we don't where the library work, we don't collect fines
Yeah.
anymore. So we were like, we don't care. Just bring the book back.
Mm.
It's okay. Like we will take care of it. Don't worry about it. So I want to play a little game. So I do this with a lot with our special guests. And so this is a this or that, a book edition. So
Ooh.
you choose like I give you two choices and you choose which one
Okay.
matches your personality. So I have them right here. Sorry, just gonna oh, what happened? There we go. Okay, so we have paperback or hardback.
Oh, I feel like I'm not going to do a quick fire answer to this though. So hardback for my eyes, because so many paperbacks now for adult reading have like tiny print, particularly US imports for some reason. If things been published in the
Yeah.
States first and we get a UK version, it's really squished up. But I also have quite a lot of problems with the nerves in my arms. And hardbacks are kind of terrible for that. So if I'm reading my hardback, it has to be kind of sitting on my sofa with a cushion on my lap and then like the hardback on there. So for reading in bed, which is one of my happy places to read, then a paperback. Yeah. So like it depends on the situation. But yeah, in an ideal world where I've got time to sit on a throne in the day, then my hardback is on my like velvet cushion that I've got spread out in front of me.
I feel like yeah, this one is hard because it does depend on the situation because like for me as a librarian, I will say hardback because they do last longer on the
Yeah.
shelf compared to paperback. Paperback is acidic; it will break down, it'll turn yellow, it will disintegrate a lot quicker compared to a hardback. However, if you are traveling to work and you don't want to lug out a huge hardback on the bus or the subway, you want to carry a paperback. So it depends on the situation, but I do prefer a hardback,
Oh
even
yeah,
if
if we're talking about just the actual like the book and it's the
yeah,
dream world, then yeah, hardback, especially with all the, the extra things with the covers and the
yeah,
beautiful illustrations and like just the like the gorgeousness of the typesetting and stuff in a, in a really good quality hardback. Yeah, they're
yeah.
a thing of beauty.
So the next one is read one book at a time or read multiple books at a time.
Oh, I'm like multiple. But I'm a bit the same with like books and with TV shows. I'll have like lots on the go, and then one will just take over, and it will be like I have to
Yeah.
go to the end of that. So in general, yeah, I'm trying to think of like I've been reading a lot recently, and then I was reading this like it's a a YA, like it's kind of like sci-fi, almost like a bit, it's got some dystopian tropes. It's called Augmented, and it's by Kinechi Yadogu, and it's just incredible. It's like a thriller, a kind of a, yeah, thrillery. Oh, it's loads of different genres put together, but it's in a world where like plant life has been kind of wiped out, but everyone gets different kind of abilities that they have kind of genetically augmented at a certain age, and the main character has the ability to kind of, you know, grow plants more quickly and control plant life. And it's really got the vibes of like a almost like one of those early 2000s dystopian things, but done in a way that is bang up to date and just really thrilling, and it was so well written. And I found that, yeah, I started reading that and I was reading it on rotation, and then that just took over and became like my whole personality until I'd finished reading it. And yeah, and then it was done and I could go back to my rotating collection of things after that.
Yeah, I have so many books I have to read, so I have multiple books at a time, and it can range from sometimes like have a mystery or a middle grade, a YA, or comics. I will read comics in between, so I'm like reading so many books at the same time. So I learned that from college of reading multiple books at a time, and it just never been able to stop. So I blame my college degree for that.
I think often people who've either like studied for a degree where you have to read a lot of books, or who have done that, you've either got the ability to read quite a lot and quite quickly, either going into the degree or by the end of the degree, you have that ability. And that does help with the multiple, like having multiple books on the go at the same time, because you can keep going with all the different threads and not lose them, rather than, you know, coming back to something a month later and thinking, oh, I don't know where I am in this at all. What's going on?
Okay, so we have a hard copy of a book, or ebook, or audiobook. So a digital a hard copy or a digital copy of the book.
I mean, I'm not going to say that I don't read ebooks, but you don't own the ebook. And if it's a real like favorite, then I would really like to know that whatever ebook service I'm getting my ebook from, are not going to snatch it back from me. And I also really love like a book in my hands. But again, I do like to lie on my side and read a book on my e-reader, and you can't do that with a, unless I'm going to train one of the cats to, you know, sit beside me and turn the pages. I do need the e-reader for that. But yeah, um, hard copy, absolutely. Audiobooks, I really love. Um, but I'm such a quick reader that the audiobook really, really, really slows down my reading time by just, you know, by like 100 times. So if I've got an audiobook, then I need to be listening to that while I'm doing something else. So I guess either while I'm yeah, traveling somewhere, or while, this is so nerdy, but while I'm doing a jigsaw puzzle or something like that.
Oh no, that's not
Um,
nerdy. I've done that too, so that's not nerdy at all. No, no,
one of
no.
my best like weekends that I ever spent, I think, was of like in when it was lockdown times and it was really all awful, but we had the audiobook of Piranesi, which is, I can't believe I've forgotten the writer's name. Suzanne,
Oh, Suzanne Clark.
it's, that's it, Susanna Clark. Yes, and it's just such a it's a wonderful. I'd read the book already, and the book is wonderful, but the audiobook is, oh my goodness, it's really incredible. And because it's a really slim novel as well, it was perfect. Just so I did this jigsaw and listened to that start to finish, and it was just like a really wonderful experience for me. That was like a dream weekend.
Oh, so yeah, I'm all three. So I will read the hard copy, and if I'm on the bus or the train and I can't get to the book, I'll if I can borrow the ebook from my library and I have it on my phone, I was like, I'll read it there. And then if I'm walking, I'll listen to the audio.
Mm.
So I'm like all three. I'm doing all three because I'm like I'm gonna try to get to read this book, no matter what, whether whichever different format. So having access to all three makes it easier. But I do prefer hard copy because it's just something about sitting there and reading something physical compared to a digital copy. Even though audio and the audiobook for Tidemagic, you did a wonderful job. So
Oh, thank you.
um yeah, having the narrator is the most important thing, because
Yeah,
I've read audiobooks where the narrator was horrible and I was like, no, I can't. The book was great, the narrator was
yeah.
horrible. So I think having a good narrator makes all the difference
Oh,
for
it's
an
so
audiobook.
important.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so, so, so important. We have a friend who he's called Christopher Ragland and he narrates quite a lot of audiobooks. And we were listening to an audiobook of his at one point and then realized it was a really, really, really creepy book. And I couldn't finish listening to the book with him narrating it because it was creeping me out too much. And he's a phenomenal actor, and it's one of those ones with like multi narrators in it, and he does all, you know, all the different narrator voices. And in fact, he used to get emails from people or no comments on the kind of audiobook file saying, but no one credits the person who narrates the voice of the cat. And he was like, that is also me. But it's such a creepy book. And yeah, we had to stop listening and I had to go and buy like I think I got the digital copy of that because I was like, I'm gonna finish this in my own time without Christopher being involved in this
I was like,
process.
I want to still be friends with you and look you in the eye. I can't.
Yeah,
I have to go outside the
so creepy.
Okay, I have two more that I'm going to ask. So we have a bookmark, or God forbid, a page corner fold.
I don't page corner fold. I don't always bookmark. If I'm at the beginning of something, like near the beginning, I quite often just put whatever's around in the book. So like I'll make, you know, it's like the
Yeah.
pen goes in the book, or another book goes in the book, or my phone, you know, my phone goes in the book if I'm just like stopping for a minute. I've also got a really weird visual memory. So quite often as I stop the book, I go, okay, page 138. And if I think it, and then I'll just remember it's page 138 when I come back to it later. So I quite often just do that. But yeah, no, I don't do the dog earring of the pages. That really hurts me. But I also don't crack spines. I realized we had a discussion about this at university, and I didn't realize that that was a thing that people really love to do. To like, I don't do that to anything. Like
It's
I've never done that.
yeah, it's hard to. I'm like, for hardcovers, it's you can't do it. You can't really crack the spine. Paperbacks, unless it depends on how tightly bound. But I
Yeah,
don't do it because I'm like, well, why am I gonna crack? You're gonna destroy the book even more. Like, why are you
yeah.
gonna do that even more? But I've heard people who are doing that because they're like, I want more freedom. Like, it's so tight. I want to be able to open it and read. It's like, well, that's then do an ebook or a hardcover for why do it. Like, don't do that to
Yeah,
the
I just hadn't
book.
realized it was a thing. And apparently for some people it's a big part of their like I don't know, like their reading experience is like that's and they get that and they do that and yeah, so fair play to them. But I just yeah, I didn't know that was a thing at all. I don't do that.
And finally, reading with tea or reading with coffee.
Oh, do you know, I think like I'm a one coffee a day person. So coffee for me is normally at the point in the day when I need to get going, and reading for me is normally my relaxation. So I would have tea when I am reading because it is that's the yeah, the relaxation portion of the day.
Yes. I excuse me, I hate coffee. So it's
Ah,
tea. Oh yeah, I'm that
yeah.
very weird American. I hate coffee. I can't even stand the smell of it. It's just,
Really?
yeah,
Oh.
it's that bad because I my dad is a coffee drinker. So growing up, he would brew coffee all the time in our house, and just the smell was suffocating. So even I had like my first job was in a coffee shop chain called
Because that
Dunkin'
wasn't
Donuts.
sensible.
Yeah, it was not sensible. I was like, oh my God, I was like, I'm gonna throw up. I'm like, why is everyone drinking this coffee? It's so disgusting. So yeah, that was not sensible. um, but thank you for playing the game. So we do have a couple of I have a couple of more questions for you. So can we look forward to more books in with Tidemagic? It did say that it is a trilogy, so there is one more book that we can look forward to.
So it's an interesting thing where I kind of asked to write something else first, and that will be so I've written a different middle grade book, and you have to decide very, a long way in advance with scheduling. And I said, look, can I write this other book? Can we do this other book first? And everyone really liked the idea for it. So they agreed that I could do that first. That'll be the next book that comes out. But that will also be the end of my initial contract. So at that point, then you're looking at it from a really like a business point of view. So we'll have to see how it's going with Trilogy Tale Off. So what we've done, because we knew we were going to be doing that, the end of the second Tidemagic book ends at a point where if it ends up being the end, I don't think we'll all be, totally devastated. It's very much not a cliffhanger like the end of the first one. But we've made sure that everything is in place, that if, manifesting everything that I
Yes.
can, I am lucky enough to be able to do that in the end. We've set it up so that I can write the book that I would want to write and take Tidemagic where it would go next, but it is going to be something different next. And that is just one of those gambles that I think you sometimes have to take in publishing, where there is a difference between the beautiful work that you want to make just for
Mhm.
yourself and thinking about how to manage your path through the industry. And it's a gamble, and we'll see how it goes. It's a really, really tricky one. So fingers crossed that all works out.
Could you like, are you able to tell us what this next book is about, or
I'm
what?
not really. Partly because the publication date is quite a long way off, and it's a really good original idea, and I've just been told to kind of, keep it like just totally squashed because of that. But it's for the same readership as Tidemagic,
Okay.
so very much squarely aimed at the middle of the middle grade bracket, but like a lot of older ones have liked Tidemagic as well, so we're hoping for that too. And also quite a lot of younger ones have liked Tidemagic, and I think that's because of the magic system and the powers and the kind of group of friends, and there are similar, aspects to that in the new thing too. Yeah. Yes, but we've just been having some exciting chats about it very recently. I'm in the kind of editorial stage with that at the moment, so it should be all edited and done by the end of this year, and then I think I might be allowed to talk about it more early-ish next year, hopefully.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I look forward to hearing about that. And yes, we are going to manifest that there will be a third book in Tidemagic.
Oh yes. Yeah. I really hope so. But you just never know. Just
Yeah.
have to see how it goes. And I think for middle grade fantasy, particularly, like Trilogy Tale Off is a big thing. Um, and I know a lot of writer friends who haven't written their third book in the series, and they've left it at a point where it's been quite heartbreaking. And so the main thing I wanted to make sure was that it wouldn't be like
Yeah.
that, because it's a weird old industry, isn't it? So no heartbreak, but just everything crossed that it may happen.
So what would you like, what advice would you give to writers out there, like who are trying to write their first book or trying to get their first publishing deal? Like, what kind of advice would you give to those prospective writers who will be watching this video later on?
Oh, it's always so tricky, isn't it? Because the like advice is not a very one size fits all thing. But I can say two things that definitely helped me that I think are quite universal. And the first thing is that I had to actually write a book rather than thinking about writing a book or writing the first chapter over and over again. Like the difference was that I, really put the hours in and did it in a way that was um full of hope, and that really powered me forward. Um, but at the same time, the other thing I would suggest is, and this is a bit cynical as well as hopeful, is to try to connect with some other people who are in the same position. Like if you can, um, like go, like the first event I went to was like a free event somewhere that a friend who is a writer said, look, there are some events for beginners, you should go to one of these things. And immediately I got to hear like an agent talking about the industry and got to meet some of the people who were in my position. And it'll open up your eyes straight away to the reality of the industry. You can get a peer group, you can be going through it together. And through those channels, you nearly always end up at some point, if you make a connection with a group of people who are at your level, who don't really know anyone, you will end up meeting people who are in the industry in some ways. And like a lot of the good steps that I've made, things like when it's talking about wanting to get published or wanting to find an agent, I knew how to find a good agent who would be good to me and what kind of publishers I might be interested in working with, because I also knew sort of some of the routes not to go down as well. And that was only because of talking to other writers and like building a community. I think it's a bit hard at the moment because like social media is much more fragmented than it was. I was very, very lucky with where social media was at the time that I was beginning this. I didn't really know anyone else who was doing it very much. I had one friend who was a writer who very kindly, but was very distant and successful, and kind of said, come to this, go to this one thing, and that was incredibly helpful. But all the rest of it really was, I started on scratch on Twitter, and met some people and learned about, I think in fact it was a Facebook post that led me to a group on Twitter that led me to a kind of community of people. And I do think it's a bit harder than that now to find connections, but that's why if there are things that people can go to either locally or even virtually, if you can like type a bit in the chat, people remember your name and find you afterwards. Yeah, that can be a good way to do it. It's like not to do it alone. I think that's probably the big message of like Tidemagic as well. Like Ista is a lonely person and she has to like, she only succeeds because she gets Nat and Ruby with her on her journey. And yeah, don't go it alone. Write the book and don't go it alone. And those are the two things.
That's perfect. That's great advice. Oh yeah, I think you nailed it. So we are sadly out of time, which is sad because this has been a wonderful conversation. Like talking with you, Claire. I feel like we can talk for hours and then so
I've
many
waffled
different
at
stuff.
you so much. I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay. No, this is great. Like, no, you were a fountain of information, and Tidemagic is like a great series. And I hope that watching this, people will go out wherever they are to go grab a copy of Tidemagic. So there is one last question that we do have our guests do. So we ask for our authors to do a 30-second to 1 minute elevator pitch for their book. So this is something that as librarians we do to encourage them to check out the books in our library collection. So we're going to turn the tables onto you and we're going to ask you to do a 30-second to 1 minute pitch for the Tidemagic series. So for those who are going to be watching this recording later on, they will go out and get a copy of the book wherever it's locally available. So whenever you are ready, you can go ahead.
Oh my goodness. So, yeah, set in a world where magic ebbs and flows with the tide. Tidemagic is the story of Ista and Nat and Ruby who have to solve the mystery of who is controlling the monsters that are terrorizing the city. Yeah, so it's a magical, monstrous, mysterious story. If you're into superpowers, friendships, detective novels, and maybe being a little bit scared, but not too scared, hopefully, then this is the book for you. It is multi-award shortlisted, and it is available in the UK and North America, and Germany and Italy and loads of other places. And it is, I think, just a really wonderful story with a whole lot of heart. So please do check it out, and then maybe we can get a third one in the future.
That was great. Yay. Absolutely
Shameless.
wonderful.
Sell my book.
Yes, that's what we have to do.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's the third thing you'd say to someone, isn't it, who wants to be a writer, especially if you want to write for children. You're going to have to learn to go out there and like engage with people. And that you might be surprised by how much you like it as well. I didn't realize how wonderful that would be. Like meeting readers, particularly, has been, yeah, incredible.
Yeah, because it's like you're just like putting yourself out there. And I know it's like hard for people who are like creative, because it's like we're very like introverted a type of people. So putting ourselves out there, yeah, it can be a scary thing to do. But yeah, unfortunately, that is something that we have to live. This is not it.
Mm.
Let me see if I can do this.
Amazing.
There we go. Yeah. um,
Wonderful.
so yes, you have heard it here. Make sure to get Tidemagic, Ista Flit, and The Impossible Key by Clare Harlow. Um, this is a really great middle grade, both of the books in the series. It's a really great magical fantasy series that all ages will enjoy, even though it is a middle grade fantasy series, but all ages will enjoy this one if you're just looking for a very great, quick fantasy series that's just full of great world building and also a little bit of mystery on the side. Definitely pick this one up, especially for your younger readers in your life. You I'm going to enter where you can get a copy of this book. We have the audiobook version also, which is a really great audiobook. I highly audiobook version. I highly recommend giving that to all of our audiobook reader fans. And don't worry, we're going to put all these links on my blog so you can get any of the purchase links through there. And also make sure to get the first book in the series, Tidemagic and the Faces of Ista Flit, that is also available in hardcover, paperback, and in audiobook format. And I will also put those links into the chat, into our onto my website as well. But I want to give a big thank you to Clare for joining us this afternoon. This has been a wonderful conversation. Please make sure to follow Clare on Instagram and also on Blue Sky. We're going to put her social media handles also on the website. And also make sure to follow Cup of Tea with That Book, please, to make sure to see more events that we'll be having upcoming for the rest of the year. We're on Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, and also you can subscribe to the Fake Book Club podcast on Spotify and YouTube. And also make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, to our YouTube channel, to see any other of the past and current author talks that we'll be having as well. So thank you everyone for watching, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Take care, everyone.